Hello, I'm Charles Kovess, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Kovess Show, episode 170. I welcome you whether you're watching on YouTube, on Rumble, or listening via many podcast platforms. In this week's episode, I invite you to consider whether you believe what your doctors are saying to you. Are they lying to you? I share 9 reasons out of many more possible reasons why your 100% faith in what your doctors tell you is not a good decision. I say you need to and you must take personal responsibility for your health and the health of your family in committed, passionate, and dedicated ways. You cannot leave this matter to chance. It is far too important and far too complex. No one else has your body. No one else has your mind. No one else has your soul. You are a unique complexity. I hope this episode provokes you to take new steps to enhance and protect your health and that of your family. Our format for the show is that I share today's big idea. I share 6 resources to help you implement today's big idea. I have a quick review of key happenings over the past week. And then for newer viewers and listeners, I cover the foundational principles for this show and more information about me. So let's get into today's big idea. It's inspired by my interview of James Roguski on TNT Radio the day before I recorded this show. James has become a warrior fighting against the activities of the World Health Organization, but he also mentioned his book, Your Doctor is a Liar, which is available at yourdoctorisaliar.com. That's a pretty provocative title, isn't it? It raises the question, can you trust your doctor? Is he lying to you? Is he telling you the truth? Is he ignorant? You see, he might be lying deliberately or he might be grossly ignorant. I believe you can only sometimes believe your doctor. I believe that a big chunk of what doctors do is accurate and reliable. I will touch on that at the end. But there are a whole bunch of reasons, and I'm going to share 9 specific reasons with you why you must take personal responsibility for your health and not rely on what your doctor says to you. Are you ready? Number 1, my cholesterol. In the 1980s, I was suspicious about the cholesterol game, and I did some research, and I've done lots of research since. The cholesterol game that's been played is a huge bunch of lies. I had my blood tests done recently. My expert's analysis of those blood results, expert is not a doctor, said that I have the bloods of a 16-year-old, and yet my cholesterol is 7.5. And on the pathology report, it said, oh, this is a worry. Your cholesterol should be 2. 2? Why would my cholesterol need to be 2 when I'm spectacularly healthy and spectacularly fit? That's like saying all of us should be 5'9". What a ridiculous assertion that cholesterol should be a given number for every person in the population. That's just one element of this whole cholesterol game. Statin drugs, which bring down your cholesterol, have a huge negative impact on you, but have a huge positive profit impact on pharmaceutical companies. Listen to the James Roguski interview and the conversation on cholesterol, and his book unpacks this whole lie that's been perpetrated to generate one of the biggest selling drugs of all time, variations of these statin drugs. My body needs cholesterol at 7.5. This ties in also to the concept of evidence-based medicine and protocols. Think about that. Your body is different to mine. Julie's body is different to mine. This protocol nonsense is putting administrators of medical practices and hospitals in charge of medical decision making. So doctors are lying to you when they're following the protocol, following evidence-based medicine, when your body is different to mine, when your body is different to the evidence-based medicine on which it is based. Beware of protocols in health. Number 2, the complexity of blood results. I have evidence, I've talked about it in previous shows, that doctors don't order a full suite of blood tests because they are incapable of interpreting the results of those tests. Now, I had a suite of 12 different tests done, and there's a range of acceptable numbers, if you like, on those blood tests. When you look at 12 different variables and how they interplay, and then you look at the range of possibilities, it is extraordinarily complex to say what should your blood results be for you to be healthy. And secondly, if you are not fully healthy, which of those blood factors is impacting on your health, be it mental, be it physical, and be it spiritual? Number 3, Julie and I just watched The Pharmacist, a 4-part series on a pharmacist called Daniel Schneider who lost his son to addiction to OxyContin. It is an excellent 4-part series that articulate the bad behavior of doctors in relation to prescribing drugs and the financial rewards for doing so. Watch that series, The Pharmacist. 4th reason ties into the OxyContin story as well. A wonderful painkiller that's incredibly addictive and has killed over 500,000 Americans. The next Netflix series to watch is Painkiller, which is a 6-part series. The Netflix series Painkiller is about the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma. The story in that series is also covered in the book, which is the recommended book this week in this week's show, Empire of Pain. It is extraordinary the marketing steps that are taken to doctors to seduce them into prescribing a particular product. And this is just one example of these products. There have been many movies made about this. Look at the evidence of the marketing that is done to doctors who are unable to do their own research. So they're at the mercy of these marketers and the strategies that these marketers do to seduce the doctors to prescribe these drugs. These doctors don't know. They're just relying on what the marketers tell them. The doctors don't have the time to study that research properly. The 5th reason why you can't trust what doctors tell you. Doctors look unhealthy. You have a look at how many doctors strike you as being the epitome of health. And on these 2 video series that I've shared with you, the doctors, it's extraordinary how unhealthy they look. If they understood health, you would think that they would look healthy. Number 6, the complexity of combination of drugs. Now, what this relates to is that to get a drug approved requires a whole bunch of research and then regulatory authorities approving that research and then allowing the drug to come to the market. Well, people have combinations of drugs. In fact, in Australia, the average number of drugs taken by people in aged care facilities is 7 each day, 7 different types of drugs. Now, there's over 200 approved drugs, but if there were only 10 drugs that you could have, do you know that the number of combinations of those 10 drugs is 3.7 million, factorial 10, then no research has been done on those 3.7 million, or very little research has been done on the ways that those 10 drugs would combine, let alone the hundreds of drugs that are now available. So doctors are prescribing these pills, and you're on 6 pills, and suddenly you get a 7th pill because you've got a problem, and that problem is often caused by the other drugs that you're taking, and you're taking this cocktail of drugs for which no research has been done. In fact, why don't you do the list of drugs that you take, or someone you love takes, and then say, right, where's the research paper that says these 7 drugs in this combination is safe and effective? Number 7 reason is the quality of the research. And to that end, I refer you to a wonderful publication called Imprimis in February of this year, written by John Abramson. It's called America's Broken Healthcare, Diagnosis and Prescription. America's Broken Healthcare. Now, John Abramson he was an experienced doctor, and he's been on the faculty at Harvard Medical School for 16 years. And this publication, Imprimis, is a publication of Hillsdale College. It's an amazing 8-page brochure. I recommend it. But let me read from it, because this is salutary. It ties in nicely to my comment on cholesterol. I read from the publication. John writes, I developed a serious cardiac arrhythmia, ventricular tachycardia. 7 years ago, it worsened, and then I had several ambulance rides and hospitalization. I'm just paraphrasing here. And my experience illustrates the good and bad side of medicine. That's what I'm talking about as well. The good side I'll touch on a bit later. On the good side, I was fortunate to have the attention of 2 world-class doctors. On the bad side, 2 days after the procedure, I was in the intensive care unit when a cardiologist came by on his rounds. He advocates a wider use of cholesterol-lowering statin medications than I do. And he started to cite the literature about why I should be taking more cholesterol-lowering medicine than I already was. I asked him if he'd read the studies underlying that literature, and of course he had. I then asked him if he understood that the end point of many of those studies wasn't really appropriate to determine the benefit of statins, and he acknowledged there was some debate about that. Finally, I asked if he was aware that when peer-reviewed articles are published in medical journals, even the most reputable medical journals, the peer reviewers don't have access to the actual data from the clinical trials being reviewed. And he answered, somewhat meekly, that yes, he was aware of that. In other words, and here's the killer point, he was aware that his recommendation that I increase my use of statin drugs was based entirely on incompletely vetted, commercially sponsored, and largely commercially influenced medical journal articles. John Abramson says this gets to the heart of the problem of the commercial takeover of the medical knowledge that doctors believe in and implement. You see, the doctors believe in it, so even though they're lying to you, they perhaps still believe it. Well, there's a classic joke, it's not a lie if you believe it. That's a George Costanza joke from Seinfeld. This gets to the heart of the problem of the commercial takeover of the medical knowledge that doctors believe in and implement. And get hold of this article. It's magnificent. If you want it, send me an email. But he comes to this incredible conclusion. We in the US are spending 96% of our biomedical research money on medical drugs and devices, and only 4% on how to make the population healthier and how to deliver healthcare more efficiently and effectively. Put another way, the US spends $116 billion on researching new drugs and devices, which comprise only 13% of total healthcare costs, but only $5 billion on research concerning the remaining 87% of healthcare costs. Why? Because the drug company's job is to maximize the money they return to their investors, and the highest return on research investment is not going to be from studying and promoting healthy diets and lifestyles. The money is in selling drugs and devices. This leads to a tremendous epidemiological imbalance in the information coming down to doctors. Even when new drugs get approved, only 1 out of 4 is actually materially better than previously available. Okay, this is a highly qualified, highly experienced doctor at Harvard Medical School. Read this article. This is reason number 7 as to why you cannot slavishly believe what your doctor tells you. Number 8. I have a number of highly experienced doctors telling me that 90 to 95% of doctors are idiots. So this is doctors in the field telling me that 90 to 95% of their colleagues are simply not capable of doing the job they're required to do, or at least to do it properly. And lastly, that the funding for the TGA in Australia, CDC and FDA in America is majority funded by pharmaceutical companies, the people making these drugs who are looking for these approvals. And there's a revolving door of executives. Each one of these 9 reasons deserves a show in itself, but the interplay between pharmaceutical companies and regulators is corrupted, so that what gets approved is not being based on proper research, on proper science, on proper analysis. It's being funded by people who benefit from such funding. And that's why the book Empire of Pain and the OxyContin story is such an excellent excellent example and lesson in all of the other drugs, because if it's happening with OxyContin, it's happening with many, many other drugs. There are many more reasons, but what I'm hoping to inspire with this is that I love doctors. I don't believe doctors unless I've done adequate research, adequate thinking. However, the one place where they are gods, doctors are gods, is in the trauma department, in burns units. I'm a director of the Kids Foundation. Doctors perform miracles in football injuries, in car crashes. They, in traumatic situations, do magnificent jobs in saving lives. As John Abrams said, he was having a heart attack and he got good care to stop that heart attack. Ignore for the moment the cause of that heart attack, but he was cared for. And that's where doctors are magnificent. And so I don't say throw the baby out with the bathwater. And by the way, I honor pharmaceutical companies in developing anesthetics to give us, a general anesthetic to put us to sleep while we undergo an operation. Wonderful gift to humanity. But we are paying a big, big price for our health. And so what I say is, for all of these reasons, you must take responsibility for your health. You must be committed to this and that of your family. You cannot leave it to the medical profession. They don't have the time to consider your unique body, your family's unique bodies, and the mental, physical, and spiritual elements of each human being that lives within these bodies. So, some resources for you to think about. My book this week, of course, is Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe. It's a thick book. That's about the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma. If you don't want to watch that, look at the video. Much more interesting. But the book goes into the subtle shifting of influence of information that's not shared, the lies that are fed by pharmaceutical companies to the regulators. Well worth taking an interest in it. My song. It's a bit of a cheat. It's a wonderful, wonderful song. I love this song. It's by the Eagles, Lion Eyes. And whilst it's about a woman who's cheating on her husband, it is also a wonderful metaphor for the lying eyes of doctors who might be treating you and who might be acting in particular ways that are more related to their income than your health. And I was reading these words and I thought, gosh, it's a deep, deep thinking around being true to yourself, around integrity and selling out on integrity. And there's a couple of verses. She gets up and pours herself a strong one and stares out at the stars up in the sky. Another night, it's going to be a long one. She draws the shade and hangs her head to cry. She wonders how it ever got this crazy. She thinks about a boy she knew in school. Did she get tired or did she just get lazy? She's so far gone, she feels just like a fool. And these words reminded me of the doctors in the 2 video series that I refer to, who've sold out for the comfort of the money, of paying the mortgage. And indeed, in meetings that I moderate during the week, many times doctors say, I have to behave this way, I have a mortgage to pay. That's what should ring warning bells to you. Many doctors put the demands of their mortgage ahead of what your body needs. Not all, many. My health tip. There are many health tips here, but my health tip is to remind you to get your comprehensive blood tests done and to get them done regularly so you can monitor accurately what's happening in your body and that of your family. My spiritual tip is to understand how stress, and my stress comes from not having enough coffee. How yummy. Stress caused by mental issues impacts on your physical and spiritual well-being. So my spiritual tip is to meditate on your levels of stress and to understand that stress comes from resistance. And so your meditation on this aspect of how much stress do I have in my life and what resistance is causing that stress. My promise to you is there's vast amounts of research available for the fact that if you reduce your stress, your body functions better. That in itself is a complex conversation. I've done some research on that with Matt Ridley and the way that your DNA functions. You know, it's incredibly complex. Our bodies are just simply mind-blowingly complex. So that's why protocols and evidence-based medicine is so flawed in so many ways. My quote is by Mahatma Gandhi this week. It is health that is real wealth, not pieces of gold and silver. And regular viewers and listeners know that I've subscribed to that all my life. I would never sacrifice my health for pieces of gold and silver. Are you? And then lastly, Isaac Asimov, one of my favorite writers, his wonderful book, A Treasury of Humor. I want to share this, obviously, since we're talking about doctors, a medical story. 3 men were engaged in one of those profitless conversations which involve all of us at one time or another. They were considering the problem of what each would do if the doctor told him he had only 6 months to live. Said Robinson, if my doctor said I only had 6 months to live, the first thing I would do would be liquidate my business, withdraw my savings, and have the biggest fling on the French Riviera you ever saw. I'd play roulette, I'd eat like a king, and most of all, I'd have girls, and more girls. Said Johnson, if my doctor said I only had 6 months to live, the first thing I'd do would visit a travel agency and plot out an itinerary. There are 1,000 places on earth I haven't seen, and I would like to see them before I die. The Grand Canyon, the Taj Mahal, Angkor Wat, all of them. Said Goldberg, if my doctor said I only had 6 months to live, the first thing I would do would be to consult another doctor. Do you like that? Very good, huh? So, think about today's big idea. You must take responsibility. And as you take responsibility, I hope that raises your own self-awareness around the decision-making processes you use in your life and increases your passion for being healthy. My aim for this show is to provoke you, inspire you, motivate you to continue to ever increase your self-awareness and your passion for the way you live your life. I invite you to subscribe to this show, to share this show with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues, to visit my websites, charlescoves.com and coves.com. And my books, Passionate People Produce and Passionate Performance, are both available at those websites. I have other books, but they're the two main ones. Now, a quick review of the week, because this show is getting on, and I know you haven't got time to listen to me for too long, but I try to keep them short, within half an hour, so I think I do reasonably well for 170 episodes. So, TNT Radio interview yesterday with James Roguski, but I also urge you, when you go to the website, every one of the shows since January 2022, in other words, for a year and a half now, have been recorded. And there's some wonderful conversations that are available there for you. But James Roguski yesterday on cholesterol, on statins, on the World Health Organization is well worth listening to. In Australia, the shenanigans around the Voice referendum continue, the lies continue, the misleading comments continue, and I'm very clear that I'm voting no, because the referendum will install racism into our constitution, and it's probably a breach of UN Declaration of Human Rights to have these provisions put into the referendum. A whole bunch of other reasons why I'm voting no, but I'm very clear on it. If you want, the two people whose views I follow carefully is Warren Mundine and Senator Jacinta Price. They talk great sense. Australian governments have paid vast amounts of money to Australian Aboriginals, and that money is snaffled by the bureaucracy and the leaders of the organisations who are having a wonderful time. And the referendum will only increase all that bureaucracy and control and have very little benefit for those it's supposed to benefit. In Victoria, Daniel Andrews, the worst premier in this state's history, resigned, gone 10 days ago, and now the evidence of the lies are coming out, including why the Commonwealth Games were cancelled. Jacinta Allen is the new premier. She has never been in business in her life. She's been a career politician, a career political staffer, and I urge all those interested to pay attention to what's happening in the Victorian government, and just to, here we are talking about lion eyes and lying. The classic line, how do you know a politician's lying? His lips are moving, or her lips are moving. But this evidence is coming out, I hope, helps to wake people up about the corruption going on in this Victorian government. And lastly, it's been a big week in Melbourne, because Collingwood won the AFL Grand Final, and in Sydney, the Penrith Panthers won the Rugby Grand Final the following day. So two black and white teams, but there's so many Collingwood supporters in Melbourne. Congratulations to them for winning the event. But it's been the celebrations that have gone on during the week, I think, have been good for Melbourne. So, if you're new to the show, stick around for the part where I share our foundational principles and my background. Thanks for watching or listening. And until our next show, may your week be full of the willingness to take personal responsibility, to embrace the challenge of life, and to choose to be happy while you embrace those challenges, while you increase your self-awareness and you nurture your passion to live your life on terms that are fulfilling for you. Have a great week. See you next week. Bye. And now, for viewers and listeners who want to know more about my background and what else I do with my life, as well as the foundational principles of the show, here we are. Since 1993, when I left my legal career, a career that I love, to become Australasia's passion provocateur, I have inspired and provoked and educated and motivated people all over the world to discover and pursue their passion. I have helped people via the books that I've written, via speeches at conferences, via in-depth team building programs, workshops over 1, 2 or 3 days, or over 3 months, 6 months. And I've coached people of all ages, one-on-one, from small, medium and large enterprises, government enterprises, helping them to identify the often tiny changes that can make a massive difference. One of my core principles is that freedom is what makes us truly human. That's why one of the greatest threats that government imposes on you to force you to observe its laws is the threat of imprisonment, the loss of your freedom. Just think about that. Government says if you don't behave yourself, we're going to put you in jail. No, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to lose my freedom. That's a reminder to you of why freedom is so important. Without freedom, you and I are not much different to animals. If you were locked up in a cage for the rest of your life, how different would you be to an animal? This commitment to fighting for freedoms for all people is carried out by me primarily through 5 channels. Number 1, preserving the freedom to pursue your passion. Number 2, inspiring you to be able to be free through excellent health. Number 3, helping preserve freedom throughout the world through the expansion of industrial hemp, a magnificent agricultural crop, an almost miraculous crop that enables every community to thrive independently of government. In this way, the power of government to take away freedom is minimized. Number 4, fighting for freedom through legal strategies. So I do work as a legal strategy consultant, as an interface between clients and their lawyers. And number 5, as chairman of the Australian Institute of Comedy and as a board member of the Australian Cartoon Museum, fighting for the freedom of thought and speech through uncensored comedy and humour, through avoiding political correctness in the comedic space. When you block freedom of speech, freedom of thought, that's the beginning of the end of your freedoms. The foundational principles for the Charles Kovess Show are founded on the formula SA plus P equals S. Your self-awareness added to your passion will guarantee that you are successful. And the best definition of success I have found in life is that success is the progressive realization of your worthy ideals. The progressive realization of your worthy ideals. This show is also guided by Socrates' famous principle and quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." You can see I'm wearing my red jacket. I wear my red jacket for all my shows. Red is the color of passion, so that when you see me on the YouTube version, it reminds you that when you see red in your life, you ask yourself the question, am I pursuing my passion? What am I passionate about? Am I still passionate about that? What might I newly be passionate about? Each week I explore one big idea that can change your life. And it's just one big idea because there's a chance you will remember it. If I give you too many ideas, then we get confused and we don't do anything. Clarity leads to power. Confusion kills passion. Each week I share simple and practical resources that you've heard me describe in the earlier part of the show. A spiritual tip, a health tip, lyrics of a song, a book, a quote, and of course humour. This show is not politically correct. I have no intention of being politically correct. And I love certain addictions, including my addiction to great coffee, my addiction to exercise, my addiction to reading, and my addiction to certain other unmentionable in public type behaviours. Who would know what they are? This show definitely subscribes to the view that we have a spiritual life. So if you don't like discussion of spirituality, this show is not for you. I promise you that I don't include anything in this show that I don't consider to be true and that I have not found to be useful in the work that I've done over the past 28 years, but also over the past 50 years in business, as a lawyer, as a consultant advisor. I only want to share stuff with you that is of value to you. Finally, if you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to contact me at charles@kovess.com. Again, thanks for watching and listening to my show. Bye.